Good afternoon. It's Monday, the 30th of March. Right, let's get straight into it. Yesterday I did about the Palm Sunday up to Maundy Thursday. Today I'm going to talk about the Good Friday, well, from Maundy Thursday to Good Friday. Just a quick recap. So we had Jesus enter Jerusalem. These great confrontations with the Sanhedrin. He did the Last Supper. And then he went to the Mount of Olives. To a place in the Mount of Olives called the Garden of Gethsemane. Just a quick talk about where he would be emotionally and psychologically now. He'd already prophesied, before even entering Jerusalem, that he was going to be arrested and put to death. Probably a week or so before all this, they said, oh yes, we must go to Jerusalem. His disciples said, we must go to Jerusalem. You must speak to the temple guards and they will recognise you. And Jesus already said, no they won't. They will arrest the Son of Man and put him to death. So he already knew all this. A normal man, the temptation would be, well, if I don't go to Jerusalem, it's not going to happen. At the Feast of the Last Supper, he announces that one of his followers, Judas Iscariot, well, it turns out to be Judas, is going to betray him. His closest advisor and his closest friend, Peter, is going to deny him 3 times. This is a group of people he'd got to know. He'd eaten with them, slept with them, drank with them, walked with them, taught them, chatted, laughed. And he already can see it's all beginning to fall apart around him. Just wanted to talk a bit about Judas. In the Bible we're told that the devil corrupted Judas, etc. I think Judas gets a bit of a raw deal here. Judas was born to be Judas. What I mean by that, if there wasn't a Judas, the passion wouldn't have happened. Jesus wouldn't have been betrayed, he wouldn't have been arrested, and he wouldn't have been crucified. It was always Judas's destiny, if you like to use that word, to betray Jesus. That's what Judas was born to do. And there's no getting away from that. Judas was always going to do this. Doesn't matter what reality you step into, that was Judas's fate. I always think Judas gets a bit of a raw deal. Because like I said, if it weren't for him, there would be no Christianity now. Because for the simple fact, Jesus wouldn't have been put to death. In which case, he wouldn't have rose again 3 days later. My own personal take on this may not be very popular with some Christians because they believe that Judas was corrupted by the devil. No. I think it was always Judas's fate. He was one of the chosen people. And unfortunately, he was chosen from birth to betray Jesus. There's no getting way around it. That was his fate. So, we have Jesus and his disciples going to the Garden of Gethsemane on the Mount of Olives. What happens? Jesus says, I'm going to pray. Stay awake. So Jesus goes away and prays. We're told, as Christians, he prayed so much beads of sweat began to appear on his forehead. Two reasons for this. It's again to show how emotional he was. He prayed so hard that sweat appeared of blood on his forehead. It's also beginning of the foretelling of the crown of thorns. Physically, you must remember, these people didn't wake up with alarm clocks. They woke up when the sun rose, or just after the sun rose, and went to bed just as after night fell. Unless they were celebrating something. So, Jesus and his followers may have been up since early hours in the morning, probably 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. It's now like 9 o'clock at night. So Jesus goes and prays. We know the disciples are tired, they've drunk, they've laughed, they've sung songs, they've eaten, because they all fell asleep. Now we have the confrontation between Jesus and God. We see Jesus now as a man, beginning to have doubts. Oh, no. Is there any way this can change? Can you take this cup away from me? I don't want to die. Yeah, I know what's going to happen, but I still don't want to die. I still feel I've got something to do in the world. In the end, he says, okay, let it be. You know better than I do. I will follow your instructions. Straight away, we have Judas returning with the temple guards, the Jewish sort of guards, the officers of the law, etc. Then we have the ultimate betrayal. Ultimate betrayal because what does Judas do? He goes up, throws his arms around him and kisses him. We think of a kiss as being love, affection, greeting, that sort of thing. But this isn't a kiss like that. It's the kiss of betrayal. Straight away, Jewish guards rush in, tie Jesus up and arrest him. His followers, who you would expect to jump up, start fighting, do anything, killing, jump up in a start. One of them rushes forward with a sword. Jesus says, no, don't do that. This is my fate. This is how it should be. And his friends, instead of following, they all run away. These are his closest friends, his companions, and they abandon him. And some of them you never hear of again until the upper rooms after Jesus has risen. They disappear. They go and hide. So Jesus is left on his own, and he is basically led to come before the Sanhedrin. When I say led, probably more like pulled. Like that. People think of it as a great walk, but actually between the Mount of Olives and the temple, it's only about a 2-mile walk. But in that 2 miles, he may have stumbled, fallen, banged his knees, grazed himself. Obviously, the ropes around his arms, hands and wrists beginning to tighten, causing bruising, probably beginning to cause swelling, blood circulation being cut off. But he is led before the Sanhedrin. The great trial in front of Caiaphas. They ask him questions he doesn't answer. Infuriates some of them that they hit him. Now when we say hit, we don't mean a slap. We are probably talking about some of the Jewish officers, the Jewish guards, hitting with a fist. This is now starting on the real physical injuries. We are starting talking about bruising to the bones, the muscles. Who knows? We're not even told, but if you hit him in the mouth, could knock some teeth out. Eventually Caiaphas says, we've heard it say that you are the Messiah. Is this true? And Jesus says, I am. And you will see me sat on the right hand of my Father. That's it. That is now it. That is now the great acclamation of who he is in front of any authority figure. But instead of even considering it, they class him as a blasphemer. And Jesus must go altogether. Under Jewish law, he would have been took out and put to death, stoned. But with them being under not Jewish occupation, Roman occupation, they weren't allowed to exact the death penalty. It had to go through Roman hands. So they say, right, we will take him from the temple to see Pilate at the Praetorium. So Jesus is led away. Again, we're not talking great distances. Some of these films, it seems like they walk for miles. Probably talking half a mile, 3/4, probably a mile away. So he's led there, in front of Pilate. Early hours of the morning. So we have Pilate questioning him. Impression I get is, again, people say, oh, Pilate was scared. Oh, Pilate was trouble. No, Pilate didn't give a toss. He's Jewish. So what does he do after questioning? He says, oh, now to do with me. Send him to Herod. Let Herod question us. Let's see if he can get any answers out of him, because frankly, I can't be bothered. So Jesus is led to Herod, King Herod, Herod Antipas, the son of Herod of Jesus' birth, who had wiped out all the newborns in Bethlehem. So he was led to Herod. Herod greets him. Oh, you're Jesus. I've heard so much about you. I've heard about your miracles. I've heard about you raising the dead. What can I do for you? Jesus doesn't answer. Herod carries on. Yeah, but listen, show me now, and I will believe you. I'll listen. Don't tell the Romans, but I'll probably put my army behind you, and we'll conquer the Romans, get our country back. Jesus doesn't answer. So infuriates Herod that he sends him back to Pilate. Again, I must say, Jesus is now being on his feet, being dragged here, there and everywhere. So he's probably been up now over 24 hours. So he's took back to Pilate. Pilate says, so Herod doesn't want anything to do here, so it's left in my hands. And he turns round to one of his advisors and says, part of the Jewish custom, we release a prisoner let's say if the Jews want him. Yeah, I can't be bothered with him. Because like I says, it's Jewish. Herod's not going to be scared of this person. Maybe a bit worried there may be a bit of trouble. But with the Roman guards, the Roman occupation, he's not frightened. Basically, he doesn't care who this person is. So they take Jesus out in front of the crowds. Right, who do you want? Do you want him? Oh, hang on a minute. We've got this guy here called Barabbas. Or do you want him? The crowds start shouting for Barabbas. We're now into more emotional and psychological torment of Jesus. Less than a week before, these same people were hailing him as the new king of Israel, the son of David. Hosanna in the highest. Now there's not even one voice raised in his defence, as we're told. There probably were people shouting, no, we want Jesus, he's a rabbi. But so Pilate goes, oh well, release him. I'll tell you what, to teach him a lesson, I'll whip him, scourge him. Then you can have him back. So he sends him down to the great scourging. We're told he received 39 lashes. Yes and no. Let's get a drink. Throat beginning to get a bit dry. What actually happened, and through archaeological findings, we now know in some of the great films, King of Kings, Great Story of Time, we see the bloke there, great strapping executioner with like a bull whip. That's all. Chances are no. Yes, they did use that, but also they had like a cat o' nine tails. That's the only way I can describe it. Now, if they used that on Jesus, yeah, they may have gave 39 lashes, but actually the thongs on the whip could have equaled up to 351 hits on the back. Not only that, some of these whips had like, the only way I can describe it, like ball bearings woven in. But these ball bearings, it's what they made the weapons from, the bits of metal that fell off and probably solidified in like balls, like ball bearings. Some of them was irregular shaped. The aim of these was so plain and simple, to cause massive injuries. Some of the whips also, they did put like mini spearheads on, or even hooks. Again, these was aimed to cause massive injury. Crack. One of them sticks in, it's going to pull flesh out. It's going to pull muscle out. We are now talking massive blood loss. We are talking internal injuries. We are talking fractures with the ball bearings of the bones, the rib cages. We are talking swellings. We're talking bruising, massive blood loss due to the rib cage, swelling, muscles around the rib, breathing beginning to get difficult. We are talking basically life-threatening injuries. There was a film made by Mel Gibson called The Passion of Christ. Some people like it, some people don't. But the scourging scene in that is probably more realistic than a lot of the films. I'm going to try to find a link, put it in the description so you can see it. That, even though it's graphically displayed, is probably more realistic than some of the other films that have been shown. But we are talking, especially with the hooks, digging into the flesh, and as it pulls off, probably pulling a full layer of skin off the back, probably leaving holes in his back. We are probably talking that the floor, due to the amount of lashes that he received, beginning to pool with blood. These sort of flogging incidences probably killed people. So he receives these lashes. Where's his friends? Where are the people? Where are all these people that shouted that we will defend you? Where are they? They're nowhere to be seen. He looks around, probably only sees his mother there, witnessing all this. His mother stood there crying. And he stood there thinking, well, if I'd run away, my mother wouldn't have been put through this. So he receives all this. Then gets up and they start mocking him. Ah, hell to the King of the Jews. Ah, blah, blah, blah. One says, he's a king. He needs a crown. So they go over to like a briar bush. They plant a crown. Now, I've done a bit of research and probably they think the crown thorns were from a bush called Euphorbia milli. I'll put that in because my Latin is not very brilliant. Plait this thorn crown, probably 2 or 3 rings. Thing is about this bush, the thorns are very thick, very sharp, and very strong, and they are about, it says 30mm, so just over an inch. And they place this on his head. They don't just lightly put it on his head. They probably grab hold of his cloak and on his head. These thorns are automatically digging into his head, ripping open skin, more blood loss. Don't know if any of you have done it, but I have cut myself up here once before, banged my hair, cut it, and blood ran down there, into the eye socket, into the eye. I tell you now, that stings. No, it doesn't sting, it bloody well hurts. So he's got all this pain on his back, he's now got blood in his eyes. So he is in a very bad way, yet he still stands up. He needs a royal gown. We're told to put a purple cloak on him. I can't see a Roman guard offering up their own cloak to put round him. The amount of blood loss he's having, the amount of bleeding from the back, oh well, chances are it was a horse blanket. Probably a horse blanket that's been on floor. In horse pee, shit, everything. But let's say it's a horse blanket on the back of a horse. A sweated horse. Put a horse blanket on the back of a horse so it cools down slowly. So this blanket is now soaked, probably, in horse sweat. We've all done it, we've all cut ourselves, got salt in it. Probably having salt and vinegar crisp, or you're doing something, you pick some cup of salt in it and it's ouch. I've already described the massive amount of wounds on his back, and they put this horse blanket round, full of sweat. Sweat is basically water with salts in, etc. The pain must have been terrific. Then what did the guards do? Hail, hail. And then they start beating upon him. Now, compared to the Sanhedrin and the Hebrew guards, these are Romans. Exercise a lot, train a lot. In England we would say built as a brick shit house, muscular. These people are going to hit you, they are going to mark you. Probably break, crack the cheekbone, probably the orbital bone, probably the nose, again knock some teeth out. We are talking black eyes, swollen jawline. If they hit him in the ribs, probably fractured ribs, more internal injuries. So eventually they lead him back to Pilate. Pilate sat at his desk and he goes, one of the great lines, Esce homo, behold the man. So he then takes him out to people, and people probably look at him and go, whoa. This person that they claimed to be the king of the Jews is now just a broken man. Probably a lot of people in the crowd didn't even recognise him, because he would have been that covered in blood, bruised, swollen. Probably nobody recognised him. So Pilate says, well, here's the man. I punished him. What more do you want? The crowd's riled up by the chief priests and scribes say, crucify him. So Pilate goes to, why? Well, he'd broken our Jewish law, he's claiming to... So Pilate goes, well, if you want him crucified, I'll crucify him, but I'm not going to act as judge and jury. So he washes his hands and says, it's your problem. If there's any comeback, frankly, I don't care. He's a troublemaker. He's one less troublemaker, one less zealot. Probably Pilate thought of him as a zealot. One less zealot. Take him away and crucify him. I can't be bothered. It's coming up breakfast time. I want something to eat. I want something to drink. Get rid of him. I'm not bothered. I says, Pilate's made out to be, I'm scared. Frankly, I don't think he gave a jot. He didn't care. So Jesus is led away. Again, some of these great films we see Jesus walk across with a full, to the crucifixion with a full cross. No. What they did was carry the crossbeam, if you like. But the way they carried it is that arms were outstretched and the beam was actually tied to the arms. So they were walking like that. These beams are not nicely plain pieces of wood, sanded down, all nice and smooth, probably varnished to make it nice and smooth. No, they were just chopped pieces of wood. Thick pieces of wood, thick planks. So now we've got him carrying massive blood loss, still wearing the crown, blood running into his eyes. We've now got something heavy tied to his back. Probably splinters digging into the open wounds. Again, opening the wounds up every time he moved. Any areas that are beginning to scab would reopen and start bleeding. Or because he couldn't protect himself, probably beginning flies round his back. Because they could smell the flesh. And he's walking along. The distance between the Pretoria and Golgotha is about 2.5 miles. I think it said about 2.3 miles. Again, not a great distance. We think of this great long walk of Christ. It's been like, people imagine it being like 8, 9, 10 mile, 2 mile. Normally, you could probably walk that distance quarter an hour, 20 minutes. Walking normally. But we're talking about a person here that's been so internally damaged and externally damaged. Now carrying a heavy weight, again restricting the breathing. He's probably walking slowly. And we hear that he falls. When somebody falls, they put out their hands. Probably end up breaking the wrist, probably breaking the arm. Put out hands. His arms are tied like that. So he falls. We don't know if he fell forwards, we don't know if he fell backwards, or we don't know if he fell sideways. Let's say he fell sideways. Bang! Or because his arms would have been so tightly tied, that arm would have gone in, the plank would have gone like that. Probably dislocated his shoulder. We don't know. Falls forward, hitting the knees on the ground. We are not talking nice paved roads. We are talking probably dirt roads, some probably cobbled, sharp stones on it. Again, opening up wounds in the legs, grazes, scratches, probably deep cuts. Definitely within a few minutes, the knee would have been swelling up. Probably a twisted ankle. How many of us twisted an ankle? Stood up and gone, oh! But he's dragged to his feet. Carries on walking. He then falls again. This time, let's say he falls backwards. Bang. Damage to the neck. Damage to the spine. Any wounds that are beginning to heal up will be reopened. Loss of breath. Probably cracked ribs. Who knows? He's took up again, made to walk, falls again. And this time, they say, oh, he needs assistance. So they get somebody to help him. So he's took to the place of crucifixion. Again, emotionally, psychologically. Doesn't see any of his friends. Not even in the crowds as he's fallen. Not one rushes forward to help him up. They've all disappeared. He is alone. These people around him that held him as the King of the Jews are probably now jeering, laughing. Aye, he said he would do this. I said, look at him now. Oh, what a waste of space. So we now come to Golgotha. He's laid down on the floor. Any clothes on him are took off, so he's just got like underwear on, which is just basically a cloth woven around his lower half, and he's nailed to the cross. Again, in a lot of the paintings, you see the nail going through like that, through the palm of the hand. No. Archaeological discoveries discovered that it goes through the wrist and probably just below the wrist. If you feel there, it's like a gap. That's where the wrist joins. It would have been put through there. Down there, you've got brains, arteries, chances are it would have damaged them. Probably cried out in pain. May not have cried out. Probably was so far gone by this time that with all the other pain, it was just it's just a bit of pain. We don't know. So he's now nailed to the crossbeam. How to get the crossbeam up? Nails through the wrists, probably tied there, probably tied there. What the Romans did was use like a pulley. Put some hooks underneath and literally lifted him up. So he's now being lifted up like that. This would have, chances are, would have caused separation into the shoulders. Due to the body weight, pulling down, probably caused separation in the shoulders. And he's hooked on. There's a foot wrist, the hammer and nail through his ankles. Again, it's through the ankles, just to support it. And it's there. This is like 9 o'clock in the morning, and he's there for 3 hours before he speaks. We're told between the 3rd hour and the 9th hour before he dies. So we know between the 3rd hour and 9th hour, we know he's up there 9 hours. So he's there. Blood loss, emotional, psychological. Yeah, his immediate concern is he sees his mother and at last one of his disciples. What does he do? He says, "Mother, see thy son. Son, see thy mother." In other words, he tells to this disciple, "I'm going, I'm gone. Look after me mother." And then it cries out this, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani." My God, why have you forsaken me? People saying, well, it's crying Elijah. Then they start mocking him. And they gave him a drink of vinegar with myrrh. Myrrh, a bit has anaesthetic properties to it. A painkiller. A bit like an opiate. But now let's take a bit of sidetrack into fantasy land. You've got everybody out there. They're now shouting, he said it would cross. He said it was God. You know, if he's God, then come down off the cross and prove it. If Jesus wanted instant conversion, it could have happened there. It says, let's take a little sidestep into fantasy. The earth begins to tremor. The first nail flies out of his wrist. Caiaphas is there in the crowd. One. Boing. Double top, as the saying darts. Caiaphas is dead. Other nail flies out. Straight across, hits Pilate in his home. Suddenly the heavenly host there, who untie him, put him down on the ground. Behind him is Saint Michael, the famous image of Saint Michael with the flaming spear. Gabriel with the horn. The other angels behind him. In Jerusalem, straight away, there's an eternal fire that burns every Roman. Something like that would have spread round the Roman Empire within days. Instant conversion. Jesus would have been crowned the King of the world. If they wanted to show the power of God, that there is only one true God, that would have been the way to do it. What does he do? he says, "It is finished," and he dies. The chief priests go to Pilate and say, "Listen, we're coming up the Sabbath. You know, these people are on the crosses, because there were other people being crucified as well. You know, we can't have them up there due to our religious laws." So Pilate says, "Oh, go and break the legs, take them down, put them in prison. When the Sabbath is over, we'll put them back up there and crucify them again." Great way of doing it, isn't it? But they come to Jesus, find he's dead. Well, think he's dead. "Oh, well, to make sure, we'll stab him in the side." So the great spear, bang, straight in the side. The Bible says something about milk, blood and honey coming out the side. Obviously the blood's blood. Obviously pierced the heart, or at least caught some sort of internal blood vessel, probably the aorta. The honey is a bit more hard to describe. It's probably the piercing of the lung mucus, fluid coming out. But now, Jesus is definitely dead. There's no doubt of it. Surprising he survives that long. Massive blood loss. Probably from the third hour, probably going into what they call medical shock due to blood loss. Probably got to a stage where pain was nothing, because the pain receptors in his brain probably started shutting down. But then he's took down off the cross, buried. Three days later, the family go to prepare the body, because obviously with him being took down, so late in the day they didn't have time to prepare the body because the Sabbath had started. So they go to the tomb, find nobody there. Straight away, the disciples blame. No, what a load of rubbish. The disciples were cowards. They ran away. They'd probably been nowhere near the tomb, nowhere near anybody else. They'd been hiding in an upper room. It's the women that were brave enough to go to the tomb to prepare the body. And then of course you get the theories, well, he wasn't dead. He probably went unconscious. Anybody that can go through that sort of internal injuries, psychological injuries, emotional injuries, blood loss, culminating in a stab to the lungs, which would have definitely collapsed the lung. If they can walk away because they weren't dead, they are definitely something exceptionally inhuman about them. Probably total blood loss, probably half blood capacity. I'm not a doctor, don't know. Just thinking the amount of wounds received. One thing we do know is the injuries caused would have been terrific. There's no doubt about that. They've found skeletons of other people. They've gone through crucifixion and probably said, there's no way can somebody survive them sort of injuries. So I said I would do a bit of talk about Good Friday. touched on the emotional. Like I says, all his friends deserted him, left him alone. Psychological. He could have prevented this by just walking away, or he could have done on the cross what they all were shouting for him to do, call down the choirs of angels to save you. But no, also the psychological, because he knew what was going to happen. And he could have just walked away, said, no, enough's enough. I've done enough. Then of course we're talking about the blood loss, the injuries, skin being ripped off the back. I think there would be classed as edemas, as swellings, blood clots. Probably loss of teeth, fractures. I know the Bible says, well, no bone was broken, but we're talking in the real world, probably there would have been fractures. Definitely. Got no doubt about them. Carrying the cross, stumbling, falling, dislocations, down to simple things like a twisted ankle. Probably one of the collapses were probably passing out, fainting, due to blood loss. In the end, massive trauma. What they would call massive trauma. If that happened, something like that happened today, you would be having an emergency room full of doctors, technicians, nurses looking after them. And probably the chances of them surviving would have been 50-50. Them days, nothing like that. Chances of surviving, zilch. This is my take on it. Like I says, I think Judas gets a bit of a raw deal. Pilate's made out to look a bit of a coward, and frankly I don't think he was. I don't think he cared. It's an internal Jewish problem. It was a case of, well, if you want him crucified, let's crucify him. So because I can't be bothered. In the end, he was a Jew. He was a Jew. He was Jewish, part of the Jewish faith. It was nothing to Pilate. Probably gone out that afternoon and ordered about 20 other people being crucified and killed. Didn't care. But that's it. Hope it's been a bit of interest. Like I says, I'm going to find a link about the scourging. Like I says, Mel Gibson's quite good. And also that plant, I'll put down the name too, so you can check it out. Oh, it does look a nasty bit of thorns on there. Okay, doke.